we should go ahead and get. Thanks, Nina. I think we should go ahead and get started right now, so we can give our panelists a good 45 minutes to present. We're about to debunk the myth that you can't design safer streets in the state of Idaho. We are going to have 3 communities share some great information with us. Before they do that, though, I do want to introduce Darren Fluke, who's going to facilitate this discussion. Darren, I got to know Darren when he was working at the city of Boise, who is the deputy director for comprehensive planning. He has a lot of experience working with cities on a variety of things. Wait a minute. Excuse me. Design and entitlement of land development projects, zoning ordinance rewrites, land use and transportation plans. I know Darren is a bike commuter because I see him around town. I've seen him ride the city bus. So Darren, why don't you go ahead and lead this great group that we have?
Thanks, Cynthia. It's really nice to be with you all this afternoon. It's been a great conference, and congratulations to you and Nina and the team for a job well done. It's been really nice. We have some really great case studies to look at today from across Idaho. We're going to start up in Sandpoint with Aaron Qualls, and we're going to move to City of Mountain Home with Brock Cherry, and then finally we'll end up in Boise with Meg McCarthy. First, we're going to start with Aaron. I first met Aaron many years ago when he was a city council person up in Sandpoint and told me he wanted to be a planner. I think his mom told him to get honest work or something like that. He was planning director for a good long time in Sandpoint and has since moved on to managing projects for SCJ Alliance. Aaron's going to talk to us about a really great case study up in Sandpoint. So Aaron, take it away.
Well, thanks, Darren. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and talk a little bit about Sandpoint's downtown streets revitalization project. This is the Cliff Notes version. It was a very long project coming. So just to orient you, this is Sandpoint is located in the northern panhandle of Idaho, fairly close to Canada, with a population of about 6,000, and lots of trains, planes, and autos move through Sandpoint, including a lot of trucks. In 2012, the city adopted a downtown streets plan and design guide, which followed several other efforts throughout the years. This was kind of the study area. The downtown is located along Sand Creek. And this is what it used to look like before the 70s, back in the 50s and 60s, with the exception of the parking meters. So part of the idea was to kind of bring Sandpoint back to the way things used to be downtown, right? But to do that, and this is a whole nother story in and of itself, is the rerouting of highways 95 and 2 out of the downtown. Well, the Sand Creek Byway, which really got its genesis, I've heard as far back as the 1940s, was completed in 2012. And it was one of the largest infrastructure projects done by the state of Idaho. And the way it ultimately turned out, although very controversial for a long time, I think is really appreciated by most in town, particularly given the pathway you can see along, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but along the west side, along the creek there. And this freed up one aspect of Sandpoint, getting its streets back. The other part was Highway 2. And through a series of collaboration with ITD, a 3-lane version was instituted, at least to handle for the time being. That's a video on the right that I won't play because they don't have enough time, but it's a long-term resident's first experience going on the 2-way streets. And she had grown up only knowing them to be 2 ways or 1 way with multi lanes. And this is a picture of First Avenue. And First Avenue is the real retail hub of our downtown. And you see you had 3 lanes of 1-way traffic, which is really problematic for crossing, for pedestrians, particularly with sight lines, as one car stops for the pedestrian, kind of blocks the distance for others. So not the safest, most walkable environment, particularly for the real heart of your downtown.
Also, a lot of trucks, logging trucks, cattle trucks, didn't really lend itself to, a nice place to have a bagel or cup of coffee or have a conversation. Part of the efforts in 2012 for the Downtown Streets Plan and Design Guide was a lot of public engagement. We're talking about huge changes in our downtown. And one of my favorite exhibits is the picture on the left there, where kind of a scale model was done with a fixed amount of right of way, so that people could trade off different elements and get a sense of what the trade-offs might be with angled parking or bike lanes or expanded sidewalks. And really the whole kind of one of the main goals of the plan, I would say, was to really transform downtown from a place to drive through to a place to go to. Whether it's by foot, by bicycle, or apparently by bike lane, if you see up there in the top of the picture. And this picture was just taken the other day, not too shabby. So the public investment really brought along a lot of private investment too. So you can see wider sidewalks, new street furnishings, angled parking, which kind of dispersed traffic through dispersed parking throughout downtown a little better, which a lot of businesses appreciated. There was also stormwater treatments and some curb extensions, and bringing it back to the kind of the safe systems approach. It really improved, improve the safety of the roads by slowing traffic down, which is also a lot better for business in a lot of ways. And where you see what's going on, it made it safe for all users, and again, safe speeds, etc. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version for that very long, drawn out project.
Thanks, Aaron. And it is important to recognize how long these projects take. One of my very first consulting projects was in Sandpoint in about 2001 for one of the landowners who its land was being taken for the byway to be built. And they were just at that point in detailed design, and it didn't get built until 2012. So that just really gives everyone a sense for how long these projects take. Given that, what were the hiccups you guys faced with this project, or were there things or points within the project where you felt like it was never going to work or never going to happen? I know from having been on the ground in Sandpoint quite a bit lately that it came out really nice, and it really did restore downtown to that really nice urban feel.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Can you still hear me okay? Unfortunately, my headphones kind of failed on me there. But this was something I put together for a hearing, and it kind of gives a timeline of really how long it took in terms of planning for us to finally get to the implementation stage. And the first time that two-way streets were really, I guess, encapsulated in a plan was back in 2001. So here we are 2 decades later. Having just implemented this vision. And yeah, there were a lot of hiccups along the way. There was a lot of negotiation and, compromise and, working really intently with the state of Idaho, with ITD, of course. And at one point, just a couple of people, it's a very controversial project, to change this big, it brings a lot of controversy along with it, right? And it was delayed for a while. It was delayed for a year, just based on a couple of people who were able to delay it. And unfortunately, that increased the cost because, construction costs really dramatically increased in that year. And then, some staff changes along the way happened. And there was a couple of things key, I thought were really nice bits of the plan that were in the original plan that did kind of fall by the wayside. This was a feature intersection concept that was articulated in the plan, and this was put together by the project engineers, a couple of different options. And this is Main and First Avenue, right in front of the historic Canada Theater. And well, due to, like I said, some staff changes and, maybe a shift of priorities kind of mid-implementations during phase 2 of implementation, we got this, that no curb extensions, no feature paved intersection at First and Main. which, not quite as much of a placemaking intersection as it could have been, but still not to let the enemy not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It still turned out pretty great, as you well know.
I'm sure it's shocking for everyone to hear that there was actually opposition to such a great project. We never see that in this day and age, which is a nice segue to Brock's project. I first met Brock Cherry a number of years ago when he was the student representative on the APA Idaho board. Since that time, he's had just a rocket ride of a career working for Senator Crapo as an intern, and also for the community review program for Idaho's rural cities. He then went to the city of Meridian, where he was an assistant planner, and he moved up to the city of Twin Falls, where he was a city planner. And now, believe it or not, a few short years later, here he is the community development director for the city of Mountain Home. And Brock has a really unique project to share with us, including some interesting challenges that they had with public engagement. So Brock, let's hear your story.
Awesome. Thank you, Darren. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. So I was fortunate in that when I came into Mountain Home, everything was already done. I just kind of had to ride the wave. So I had missed a lot of it, and I came in on the very last two phases. So before I get started, I want to just be totally transparent in that the book is better than the movie. The 2018 Downtown Master Plan is a really awesome planning document. It is very comprehensive. It was well written. It outlines a ton of things that the city of Mountain Home has done to get our plan off the ground to revitalize our downtown. So what I'm going to do after I speak, I'm going to put a link to this in the group chat so all of you guys can see it. So a little bit about Mountain Home really quick. We are a smaller community, about 35-ish minutes to Boise. We're an Air Force town with the Air Force Base. We have approximately 6,000 more people. So our daily service population is around 20,000 people. Mountain Home has had a very weird growth pattern in that when a lot of the growth was happening in 2008, and prior to that, we weren't really necessarily going gangbusters. And also in the past couple of years, we actually struggled with our population growth. But I think what has happened is Boise is filled out, so Mountain Home is growing. And that growth has given us the opportunity to do some really awesome things. So our downtown revitalization project, we have two ITD roadways. We have North Main Street and also North 2nd East. Both of these roadways prior to the project were 3-lane one-way roads, very similar to what you saw in Sandpoint. They weren't anything special. The original infrastructure was very dated. You had narrow, non-ADA compliant sidewalks, go figure. You also had just a lot of damage. We had very old, ginormous trees that were breaking through sidewalks. It just wasn't a good deal. And there wasn't a lot of placemaking either. It was very much, this is a place that we get through. And also, we had a little bit of a leakage problem. And I want to grab onto this because, as Darren mentioned, when we did the public outreach and to really get this project off the finish line, our branding was very important. And the fact that our drainage, that we had a terrible drainage system that with very small rains in 5 minutes could flood multiple lanes, really ended up being a very persuasive argument of why the city should pursue this project. So we looked at that in depth, using it as kind of a smokescreen for what we really wanted to add. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone knows that biking is important, cycling is important, alternative transportation is important. However, when we carry that narrative into rural Idaho, areas where people have to utilize a car to get everywhere. When you speak about new transportation infrastructure for cars or pedestrians or a bike route, they just see taxes. So what we kind of bent the narrative to was, let's upgrade our infrastructure, which is ancient. Let's stop flooding downtown. And we're kind of going to slide in some really large, amazing sidewalks and do some placemaking and create some space. But we really stayed true to that. This is a infrastructure project narrative to really get it there. It was a very long process. The very first time that we really started getting this project off of the ground was in 2016. We had Roger Brooks come. He did a presentation. We did public charrettes, got public input. We kind of found out what we really wanted to do. Fortunately for us, ITD was a very great partner when it came to doing the project. They were open to doing lane diets, which was fantastic. We were going to go down, and we did go down from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, and we also have very substantial parking. One of the things I was really bummed about, which didn't come to fruition, was we didn't do the bike lanes. So, you know, even though it was planned for, it's something that didn't happen, but we really did create an amazing space. Funding is very imperative for all of these projects. We had a partner with our urban renewal agency. They have given substantial money to that. And we also applied for a CDBG grant for $500,000, which ended up getting us through. And this is what we have. I was able to take our drone out the other day and look at what downtown is, and we're very pleased. I'll have you know, and I will not name the business, but a business in this area, they were not big fans of the downtown revitalization project. They actually created a campaign against it. They had signs in their windows, and they distributed signs, you know, down with the downtown plan. And the mayor during COVID, during a crazy time, was actually recalled. Well, they actually voted for his removal from office, and they used his downtown policies as a reason to get rid of him. So you had a town that was extremely upset. However, I'm pleased to say, and for people's anonymity and for the sake of wanting to build positive relationships, I didn't include certain photos, but a lot of people who had those posters and their signs down with the downtown plan, a lot of them now have furniture outside their businesses that they are utilizing and that people eat from and that people enjoy from. So the narrative has changed, but it was rough there for a moment. And we're just extremely pleased with what we have. We've been able to utilize our downtown for multiple things, for multiple farmers market type events, other chamber events, downtown being that we now have these very large sidewalks and people can gather. So with that, that's really all I have. I just wanted to end with this slide. Like Sandpoint's, our initial plan for the downtown revitalization happened in the year 2000. In the year 2000, I wasn't even in middle school yet. It was a very long time coming, but it did happen, and it took persistence, and it took the right staff members, but it also took the right policymakers as far as the city council who was willing to support it and willing to go against some naysayers. So it is hard, but I can say that the journey is worth it, and you will be pleased with what you have. And with that, I guess I'm just going to yield my time. So Darren, how did I do?
You have no time to yield, my friend. I'm sorry you went over, but that's okay because it was a great project. And I can attest personally, having been through there a number of times, both before and after, what a great improvement it is. I think I'm starting to see a theme here with state highways that are one-way couplets through the middle of downtowns, not enhancing kind of the urban feel of the area. Unlike Sandpoint, you guys didn't revert back to two-way streets, is that correct?
No, we remained one way. That was largely what was recommended by ITD. And we thought doing the lane diet was, we just had to be very conscientious about choosing our battles. And we thought, that would already be such a drastic improvement that we were fine with that. And it has worked fairly well so far.
Well, I'm disappointed that you didn't name names for us, but I'm glad to hear that people who were opposed are now on board and fully integrated into the new downtown that you have. I think it was a great project and it's looking really good there. That should help you in your economic development activities. At this point, I want to switch to Meg McCarthy. Meg is the Ada County Highway District's Bicycle and Program Coordinator. I think the first thing you'll notice about Meg is she is not Ryan Head. As probably the newest member of the ACHD staff, she became aware very recently, as of this morning, that she'd be giving this presentation. So thank you, Meg, very much for stepping in for Ryan. We hope he starts to feel better soon. Understand he's a little bit under the weather. Meg came to us from the Utah State University, where she was working on transportation demand management programs. And she's going to talk to you about a particular project within the city of Boise that's been very successful. So Meg, please take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, great. All right. So ACHD's commitment to developing a safe system transportation network has.
Hey, Meg, could I ask you to put it on presentation mode real quick?
I think it is.
Or on full screen?
Let's see.
There you go.
Is that okay?
It'll be fine, Meg. Go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Wait, someone's coming over to help me. Is this what I need to do?
There you go.
Great. Okay, cool. Okay. So ACHD's commitment to developing a safe system transportation network has a long history that is illustrated with this graphic. But most importantly, things really started to happen with the adoption of our transportation land use integration plan, which happened in 2009. This has our complete streets policy, our cost share ordinance, and our livable streets design guide in it. And around this same time, ACHD did its first bike master plan. But when we were doing this bike master plan, bike lanes were really sort of for the strong and the fearless. And so moving forward, ACHD has started to try to provide bike facilities for all ages and abilities because there's a lot more people that would bike and not everybody is going to be strong and fearless. And so over the last few years, ACHD has taken big steps in refining its focus on building livable streets that are comfortable. And most importantly, we adopted the livable streets performance measures, or our LTS metrics. And that's measures that allow us to see what the comfort level is going to be for someone walking or someone biking. And I'll show a little bit more on that in the next slide. But for us, building a safe system occurs project by project and location by location. And we've made a lot of adjustments, and kind of some of the big highlights that have happened recently are any bike facilities that are on arterials. We are not putting those on the road anymore. They're going to be either raised or behind the curb or protected or a multi-use path. We're building protected intersections and roundabout instead of conventional intersections. We're looking at bulb outs on every single project that we do, and considering traffic calming elements for all of our projects. And when we're going in for maintenance, we're looking at projects holistically and trying to fill in sidewalk gaps and take kind of a get it done once approach instead of constantly going back. And we're also trying to emphasize refuge medians and increase our buffer widths. So this is our livable streets performance measures. And like I said before, they measure the level of comfort and for the users. So most people are probably familiar with level of service. This is used for roadways and intersections, and we use it to see what the level of service is based on volume of vehicles. And we have a rating between A through F. Vehicles, though, are not the only users of a roadway, and it's not even vehicles. It's a machine. It's not a thing. It's people driving these vehicles. So at ACHD, we sort of adopted a level of service approach as a measure of roadway capacity. And we're trying to look at it from the comfort level. So if a driver is stuck in traffic, they're obviously going to be uncomfortable. Whereas when you can drive and there's no traffic, it's going to be better. So our performance measures are a similar thing. We're trying to build facilities for all ages and abilities. So that's LTS 1 or LTS 2, which is high comfort for adults. And we have a saying here, it's not always going to be possible to do this, but it's progress towards the goal is success. So we're working towards that. So as I said before, safe systems are built project by project. This project was definitely built before my time, but it's sort of an unconventional roundabout called the Dog Bone. And it replaced a 5-way signalized intersection that was next to a junior high and a park and a mixed use neighborhood center. Hill Road is used a lot by commuters and road cyclists, and we needed to decrease the delay at this intersection and also provide a safe facility that would fit the needs of all of the people that are using this. So ACHD did that by building this with a safe navigation speed of 15 miles an hour. And this allows a cyclist that's comfortable in the road to take the lane. But it also allows for pedestrians to be able to cross with RRFBs. And so they don't have to cross multiple streets at a time. And they also included this fence in the middle of it so that movements are going to be more predictable and to encourage the proper use of this facility and following the rules. And so this is just one example of an ACHD project, but we are completing more and more every year. And that is the end of this presentation. It's only 3 slides.
Thanks a lot, Meg. That's very informative. And I know, the Dog Bone is right near my house and I do ride through there quite a lot. It is a big improvement. One thing we don't always think about when we talk about delay is that delay for vehicles is also delay for cyclists and pedestrians. We stand there or sit there on our bike waiting just like the cars do to get to those intersections. And the roundabouts have been just fantastic for that. Continuous flow means just that. Those intersections flow very well. The speeds are slow and they're very safe and work really well. Having said that, as a cyclist, I'm not always all that crazy about riding through a roundabout. Have you guys had much feedback from the cycling community on that aspect of the Dog Bone?
No, we haven't. I haven't heard that much feedback about it. I know from my own experience riding through it, like I feel comfortable riding through this roundabout, and usually I don't enjoy them as much.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard that much feedback. That being said, I've only been here since May. So I don't know.
Okay.
there's other things that are happening that.
Fair point.
feedback about.
So we're going to pivot and talk about policy for a minute. And just as long as you have the floor, I'm going to ask you, you guys have developed a brand new policy, which I would very much consider a safe systems approach in your new level of service for pedestrians and cyclists or level of comfort. How do you intend to monitor that or evaluate the program going forward to see if you're being effective?
Yeah, so our LTS metrics are being adopted into our policies this winter. And what's interesting about the LTS measures, my background also is I've worked on a lot of trail crews. And so I view a lot of things as tools and they constantly need sharpening. So being able to use the LTS metrics and look at every single project and see how these metrics are affecting what we're building, we can build adjustment factors and add things and take away things on those measures, depending on what we're seeing and the public input that we're receiving. But what's cool is that we can still commit ourselves into our development and technical services and into our policies. We can still fold in this level of service that's going to be an LTS 1 or an LTS 2 for bikes or pedestrians. But yeah, I think just I interact with this tool every single day. And yeah, I'm using it all the time and I am in charge of being able to change it. So,
well, it's definitely big progress and we're all really interested to see how it works out. So thanks for that. Erin, do you want to talk to us for just a minute about the policy suite that you guys were looking at in Sandpoint? I know you did some innovative work up there on the policy side and we'd love to hear about it. Once you're not muted.
Thank you. I have, but I wanted to share a policy that I didn't work on because I think it still has a lot of relevance. And it was one that I was sort of tasked with administering, but yeah, it was the Sandpoint Complete Streets policy, which I want to say was adopted around 2010. And what precipitated that was a pedestrian death back then. There were a couple on one certain portion of the roadway, just on the edge of downtown, away from where I showed you, but where Highway 2 is. If there's any Jeff Speck fans out there, we know that walkability is more than just, do you have a sidewalk or do you have a crosswalk? It has to be useful, safe, comfortable, and interesting. So the Complete Streets policy that Sandpoint adopted and which I administered for a long time was, for all users, right sizing travel lanes, right? No larger than it needs to be and appropriate for the neighborhood or the context that it's in, buffering and pedestrian refuges. And that's been really important for Sandpoint to administer, particularly because of the snow we get and the snow plows that, otherwise, sometimes when you see sidewalks right up to the curb, they just get covered in snow. And there's a couple of routes to schools that are really challenging because of that reason in Sandpoint. But it also provides more comfort and more of a sense of safety. And part of that means, sidewalks built to the property line as opposed to, all the way out to the street. And then safe crossings, RFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, also invoked. And this really, I can't say that Sandpoint's, done a great job everywhere. This is kind of that area on further down Highway 2 that has, I think those lanes are about 16 feet, one of them. There's no parking on either side of the road. There's no pedestrian refuges and very limited crossing areas. I like this picture because it's a Google Streets View image, so kind of at random, and you can see the guy on the right side of the frame is about to play Frogger across 5 lanes of fairly fast-moving traffic. And this is, pretty close to a lot of real dense neighborhoods where, people might otherwise choose to walk to for daily service, such as the grocery store, the pharmacy, et cetera. So anyway, that Complete Streets policy does kind of, tier off of the comp plan, which has some pretty strong directives as well regarding transportation, walkability, giving full consideration to improving the pedestrian experience, consider in some cases direct automotive transportation according to use intensity and balancing local needs with statewide or national concerns, right? Now, I have to say, what's interesting about that stretch of roadway on the highway is that ITD had a very different vision originally for that stretch of roadway, and it was some property owners who were able to lobby at the highest levels of government. Kind of, I'm thinking about Brock's story of his downtown to take away those pedestrian refuges and the all different design that was originally intended there. But maybe someday we'll be able to get there.
Yeah.
So some other strong directives as well, alternatives of widening arterial streets, et cetera.
Cool, thank you. I know Sandpoint takes walking very seriously. They even have signs telling drivers to stop for peds in the crosswalks, which is nice. And if we had a little more time, I'd love to talk about the sidewalk policy, because I think that's pretty innovative and is really helping to fill in some of those gaps in the sidewalk network up there. But we may have to save that for another time. I know we're getting close to time, so if any of our audience has questions, please put them in the chat now. And while we're waiting for those to show up, Brock, did you want to weigh in on the policy side of this discussion at all?
On the policy side, I would say, right now growth is gangbusters. And there's great opportunity to take advantage over the new growth, paying for better development than what was done in the past. One low hanging fruit that we did was when I first got here, we didn't have a master pathways plan. We were anticipating tons of land annexing into the city, which was all contiguous with each other. And we all of us thought, man, wouldn't it be great if there was a pathway there? And I was like, of course it would. So let's make the developers do it when it develops. And we added it to our code. And now it's part of the improvements that need to be made when developers come into Mountain Home. And, they don't really look at it twice. It makes the taxpayers feel better because they know they are not responsible for that initial construction. And then maintaining it is really not that bad compared to watering tons of green space. So I would just encourage everyone to look for those low-hanging fruits.
Nice. That even touched on what was going to be my next question, which is what your recommendations to your colleagues were for getting that policy in place. As Brock mentioned, growth is happening rapidly, and it really is important to get the policy in place just as early as you can, because without that in place, the growth happens to you, and you don't really get the opportunity to direct it in the way that you'd like to see it happen. Cynthia, I'm not seeing any questions come in yet. Did you have a question that you wanted to weigh in with?
I don't. I just do want to reiterate what you all said about the length of time these projects take. And I know that there are probably people sitting on this presentation today thinking they would love to do something like what one of you have done in their community. And they're probably thinking, oh my gosh, where do we even begin? And will we ever get this? It's going to take so long. So if anybody wants to offer some words of encouragement to somebody on this, just, throw out there, just, Aaron, did you live from start to finish with the project up in Sandpoint? I know it took a long time. And what does it feel like to go through that?
Oh man, it was so cool to see it. I was out there taking pictures of construction, every day, and just, watching every part of it get constructed. And I am really pleased. And I know a lot of business owners and residents are too, even though despite the controversy. But, there are some things you can do to start small, right? There's a lot you can do with just paint. There was one section of road. We asked for some short-term and long-term ideas in our plan. And some of it we were able to do with paint, and it stayed as paint. Like there's a single lane on Oak Street, which is our kind of pedestrian or our bicycle route, goes next to Farm and Park, where the farmers market it is. And, that has dashed lines on either side for bicyclists, and it's kind of a single shared lane in the middle. And that is, that doesn't take a huge investment, and it's not, you can test out ideas and, switch it up later if there's something not working. So yeah, there are, those lighter, quicker, cheaper things that can be done.
I think it's important too, what Aaron said earlier about not letting perfect be the enemy of good. There's no such thing as perfect in cities. These are always compromises between competing public goods. And you going into a process like this, know that it's going to take some time and know that there's going to be some compromises made, but coming out the back end, the hope certainly is that it's going to be better than it was before, if not perfect. Jim Hansen mentions that you need to persist, and that is actually a good word for this this session, because all of you have shown a lot of persistence in sticking with these projects. Am I missing anything in the chat?
Anybody have any questions for this panel before we say goodbye? This was a great, inspiring presentation, you guys.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, it's great. I'd also just say you have to be really patient and take little wins where you can and just keep fighting and asking the same questions over and over and over. But it takes everybody to get involved too.
Be patient but bold too, which is kind of not to go against what you're saying, you know, but luckily in my career early on, I've been surrounded with great planners as examples and mentors. And, you know, sometimes it's okay to rock the boat a little bit. Don't damage your relationships, just build on them and do good work.
Great. Well, I feel like we've ended this on a really high note, and I'm so appreciative to the three of you. And I'm appreciative to Darren for stepping in and doing this. And Meg, shout out to Meg for having like an hour to prepare. So thank you for that. If there's nothing else, thank you to this panel. And I think that we are going to wrap this up. Michael David, our the Idaho Walk Bike Alliance board president, he lives in Ketchum. And boy, has he had an interesting 18 months. I can't believe he's still standing. Michael, do you want to say a few words to close us?
Sure, Cynthia, thanks. Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah, I mean, we've all had a very interesting 18 months on the entire planet. But yeah, there's some good things happening where I live, and you know, I think what I took first and foremost from today is there's a lot of good things happening all over our state, and yeah, but we have a lot of work to do. But you know, it's just so inspiring to hear these things happening, you know, and all the good advice that we take. You know, I worry sometimes about this conference. It's always so awesome, but it's also preaching to the choir in so many respects. And I know that what we need to do is take this to the next step. And what can we all do in our communities to make a difference, you know? And I think that there are some things that we can do starting tomorrow in our own communities. But you know, some thoughts. Thanks to all the great presenters today. You know, it was so great to start off with Beth Osborne from Transportation for America, and one of the things that she said was, you know, nothing is going to look the same. And she first said 100 years, but then she said 50 years, and you know, that's so true. We've got to keep planning for the future. You know, there's that joke that goes around, the P and Z, they could drop the P oftentimes, that it's just a lot of zoning, and we've got to do that. You know, I thought about then we had Keller and Associates talking about some funding opportunities and grants, and then some great projects around the state, and including obviously the rails to trails, which we see in a lot of communities. And you know, then I got to thinking, look, the railroad back then in the heyday is kind of like the highways and ITD now. Like, they never would have agreed to give up their land to where the train went to have a pathway built. But now that's the case. And well, you know, 100 years later, it's a totally different situation. So, and now that's provided some of the best places for us to provide pathways. So, you know, things are changing. And, you know, I think that because it's a kind of a preaching to the choir situation today, we got to take it home, you know. And another great thing I pulled out from our legislative session, you know, kind of was, and I don't know, the letters after those ladies and gentlemen's names. I could guess maybe, but I think it's very that nonpartisan kind of approach that we need to take on this issue. And obviously, it's hyper political in our country and in our state in so many ways. But I think I've been on the city council here for almost 11 years now. And I think one of the most wonderful things about city politics in Idaho is the fact that it is nonpartisan. And so you don't have a letter after your name of a political party, and you just talk about the issues and you try to get some things done. And, that's what Representative Green said too. She said when she first was approached to run for office, she's like, "Oh, I have to say what party I'm in. All I want to do is good for my community." And I think that's what we need to do in Idaho. Is it doesn't matter someone's political view. We're all pedestrians. Every day we're pedestrians. But even if we drive to work, we got to get out of the car and walk somewhere. So let's just keep trying to stay positive and all that, and it'll be we'll get some things done. We'll continue to get things done, and that's what's important about today, is hearing about all the great things that are being done. But I think there was a comment from, now I'm going to forget who it was, but about, when she rode her bike, it was one of the legislators rode her bike across the country, and the only place she got run off the road was in Idaho, the only state. And we do have our work cut out for us in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a video on YouTube of someone rolling coal on a bike ride or going over Galena Summit that has over 1 million views. And if you read the comments, you could get really discouraged because people they don't get it. But we get it here, and we're starting to see it now in our communities, and we just got to keep pushing. I thought about maybe just even a couple simple things that came out today that we could do starting tomorrow. And one of them, and we've started to do it here in Blaine County, is let's go to our city and county staffs and officials and have them go into the language of their transportation plan or their comp plan and change accidents to crashes in every city document that you have. And again, it's just symbolic, but it's something that we've done in Ketchum, and it's starting to, I think, it pays some dividends. You go, and another thing we've done too is, and it helps that I'm on IWBA and on the city council, so I get a little bit of pull, but we have changed and we have agreed not to use the 85% rule in Ketchum. And I'm trying to get the county to do the same thing, but once you explain it, I mean, anyone that heard today's talks would never want the 85% rule being used. But the other people that are using it, oftentimes it's not because of malintentions. They've just been using that for a long time. So if you can explain it to people, I think that's a great thing. And there was that very powerful graphic about you got a 90% chance at survival at 20 miles an hour, and you have a 90% chance of fatality at 40 miles an hour. Let's get those things. Let's get that out there and talk to people about it and lower the speed limits in your community. And the other thing that kind of bummed me out, but I want to turn that lemon into lemonade, is that the Vision Zero map, Idaho had no cities in there, and let's try to make that change too. Go to your city, your county, and say we need to shoot for Vision Zero policies as well. So just a big thanks to Cynthia and Nina for getting this thing all together, all the great presenters, and I'm sure I've spoken longer than Cynthia wanted me to already, but thanks to everyone for participating, and get people to join up on the IWBA. We just got to change the awareness level for a lot of people in our state, but there's a lot of people that care. And just in the middle of one of our breaks, heard about a fatality here in Blaine County, a hit and run accident at 12:30 a.m. on the State Highway 75. And did I just say accident? I hope I
Yes,
didn't.
it was
No,
a
I said
crash.
fatality. It was a crash. And you know, these, we all know someone who, or have a family member, or know someone. It affects us all, and this is so important. Obviously, COVID is exposed a lot of things, but these deaths, traffic fatalities, have been happening every year for many years, and we need to address them. It's so important. So thanks again to everyone, and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. I just want to say in closing, we appreciate all of the appreciation that you have given to us, but the appreciation that we really want to see is we want to see us work together for change in Idaho. And so we are so inspired by all of you today. Thank you for spending the day with us. Thank you for your comments, your important comments. It all matters. Thank you to the presenters. They all did a bang up job. It was incredible. And so now I want everybody to just turn your camera on as we all say goodbye. We're going to get a picture of that so that we can just show that we were all together for a day, even though it was virtual. And thank you. It was great to see everybody behind your computer screens. And next time, I hope we do this live. Thanks, everybody. Take care, be safe, and be kind to each other.